minutes of the October 26th. Everybody got emails. I hear somebody trying to ring in.
Should we get that one?
Not too sure.
Hello? Hi, who's calling? This is the town office. Yeah, hold on a sec, folks. So we're not gonna do the Zoom?
Not
We
Zooming
can't.
tonight,
No.
we can't.
Can we do speaker here?
You can do the speaker
You
there,
can try
I
it.
guarantee no quality or
Right.
anything else.
Do you wanna
to
try,
that.
we don't have the Zoom available tonight. Do you wanna try to do the speaker phone here? Well, I'll
There's
just
John Bidwell.
put you on speaker, can you hear?
Do we wanna put it down here a little bit table?
Okay.
I
Let's
don't know
see
whether
if,
the cord's long enough.
Yeah. we got a lot
It
of
should
work
be.
to do.
Is that Wilkes?
Okay. Yep.
Hi Wilkes, okay, we're gonna do our best.
All right, we have the minutes of October 28th now,
And
26.
or 20,
Yes, Mr.
26
Chair, I will
rather.
move them.
You will, okay, Rich.
who's second?
I'll second
Any amendments, corrections, changes, etc.?
Nope.
All those in favor of approving as submitted, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any nays? All right,
Great.
now the rest of this meeting was, I'll basically turn it over to Judy to go over the selectmen's proposed budget. We're basically gonna be hitting the OE.
Yep, operating budget, I will hit a couple of high points and then I'm happy to explain as much as I understand, answer your questions. And we will be coming back next week, to delve into it further. But for now, I would just like to point out that, we refigured the salary increase, the cost of living at 8.7%, down from 9, where we actually started at 9.5 maybe, 9.7. As you move down on page 1, you come to the deputy town clerk wages, which is 3 part-time people for a total of 55 hours. This is one of the situations where we have found we really need additional coverage if someone is out sick, or someone has an emergency, or can't be in the office. It's really important to have a couple of people there. And we know this is a jump, but we feel in the long run this is better service to town residents, and it's very important. One of the deputy clerks right now is also the deputy tax collector, so that really benefits, because she's been in the town clerk office during the days now, helping get receipts and checks and keeping the logs running, so that's we think important.
Let me, before you go on, I'm trying to take notes since Tina isn't here, so
Okay.
at least get something approaching minutes. Is it 55 hours, is that isn't the total for the year, is it?
No, that's,
Per week?
it's 3 part-time, yes, it's per week. One would be like 20, one would be like 15, and another would be 35, another 20 maybe. And those are guesstimates at this point, but something like that. The town clerk's office is open from 8 to 2, so 3 days a week.
All right, the other question is, how are we set for the training for our town clerk's retirement, which I don't think is too distant future?
It's not too distant in the future. That's one of the reasons we're getting these people in, we're getting them trained, and we're hoping that we get one of these that will move in, perhaps be able to be elected to be town clerk.
All right, yeah.
Okay?
So most of that
person,
And it's, okay.
right? So we've started with that additional person already, but classically, historically, there've been 2 deputies in there and a full-time clerk.
I see, okay.
And the work keeps increasing.
The work does keep increasing, and if anyone was at the polls yesterday, I think you probably all were there. Those folks were there most all day, from
All day
7
and
to
all night,
10:30
yeah.
or 11
Mhm.
last night, so.
I was gonna say, that alone takes up a few weeks of salary.
Well, yeah, and then you have to follow up, and they've been in here on weekends for a month now, getting ready. Financial administration, so we see some just salary increases, some computer software that's been purchased, an upgrade, and I think that's pretty straightforward. Revaluation of property, I didn't know if anyone cared to. Oh, yes,
Okay,
Sue?
never mind.
The assessors, we have a 9.3% increase.
Is that a negotiated contract at
This
point
one
in
is,
time?
we are thinking that this is what went out in the RFP, but if we end up giving a multi-year contract, it may go down. Usually you get a little bit better deal if you have 2 or 3 years in the contract. One of the things I thought some of you might be interested in, so I actually tried to have Dina give me some information on it. There were 61 appeals filed this year. 1 appeal to the Bureau of Tax and Land Appeals. Of the 61 appeals filed, 34 were abated. The total amount of abatements were $35,645 and change. Just, I know some of you are interested in that. We have only a rough idea of what if BTLA or the court required the town to do a full reval next year, would cost somewhere in the range of $75,000.
How much do we have in that account?
I don't think we have that much in that account. Let me tell you, reval. Let's bridge Where'd it go? I think-
46,
I think it's 50 something, right?
That's the property
Yeah, so
that's
56.
56,000.
Yeah, we're anticipating if we don't, obviously we have to do that, it's different, but we'll get to this eventually. We're anticipating to put 10 more in this year, but typically you've got 5 years to do a reval, so you can spread out the cost over those 5 years. You don't have one big.
Yeah, we got 46,020.
Judy, I don't mean to go back and ask you, but you have deputy wages, town clerk wages, but I don't see any benefits. Do these people not get benefits?
Part-time, they don't get benefits.
Okay, all right.
They're under the 30 hours.
Well, you
It's-
just said 35 for one person, I thought.
No, 2 at about 20 hours and 1 at about 15.
Okay, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Even 35 wouldn't get it. So we try not to.
I understand, that's all right, I just didn't see it, and that you
No,
explained.
I'm glad you asked. Okay, so, all right, legal expenses, we always keep our fingers and toes crossed, but we're not aware of anything coming through.
Was that settlement that was snuck in a couple of years ago, was that totally a one-time item?
I think we paid it out over a couple of years, but it was a legal settlement, it's done.
Is that
So we
why
don't
there's
have
a-
that hanging over us anymore, it's paid off.
I'm sorry, James?
What, yeah, I'm just wondering why it's come down so much. Is that just a year by year thing? If we're looking
Yeah,
at line 67?
Yes, I believe it's totally paid now.
It was
So we
3 years at around
Well,
100K a year.
It was 22 actually at 103, and then we spent so far this year 99, it wasn't.
All right, yeah.
I think, isn't accounting not supposed to take the settlement into the total budget? And if you take the settlement out, 103,000, the total municipal budget goes from 6% to 11%. So I think we know how to reconcile that accounting wise.
I can't answer that, I don't know what you're doing with it, but I know we calculated it's paid, it doesn't need to be in the budget for next year.
No, but it's discounted from our legal costs. The settlement was discounted from our legal costs, and I'm not sure that's proper.
Okay,
And it changes our budget a lot.
I mean, I guess, because we've had that conversation with the school board too. For example, last year, or the year before, we had conversation about whether it was the year that I think it was, there was a one-time expense, right? And the one-time expense was somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000, I think it was the roof. And the school had put it in the operating budget, right, which then made it,
instead of.
right, and then when you
capital
do
budget.
the math, then you have a 3% increase next year. But because it was a one-time only expense, the argument, and the budget committee agreed that the argument was, it shouldn't be in the operating budget because it was
Okay.
not, it was a one-time only expense.
In this particular instance, this budget went through this budget committee, town meeting, and the auditors detailed the way it is here.
With it in the.
So I can't answer the question whether that's proper or not, but I know it has been looked at and that's how it was done, and it was a payment that we had to make, so.
And it wasn't made from undesignated surplus,
No, I don't believe so.
because we did have one when I was a selectman, that was a court order, and it came out of
So,
undesignated surplus.
that's line 68. I know we talked about this last year.
Yeah, I don't.
And it's
remember.
fuzzy,
I
but
remember.
this is how they did it, and we were told to do it, and we did it that way, but we can certainly raise that question again.
So Judy, just so that I understand what this is, line 67 is
Legal expense,
legal expense, and then the legal settlement on line 68,
yep.
those are in addition?
I believe those came out of the 158, but I'm not sure. Because if you'll notice,
You put them in italics for some reason.
Right.
well, yes, I didn't personally,
I
but they were put in
understand.
italics. Yes, I see that, and I can't answer the question, so you can ask me all the questions you want. I will not change the fact that I don't know the answer to that.
Then, okay, and I think it makes sense that they come out, that the 103,000 is part of the 158,000. Because in previous years, those numbers are 35, 50, 72, 49, 34,000, and so.
Yeah, they're running 45,000 a year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
right,
that-
and that's what we've asked for this year, is
Okay,
45,000.
Yep, okay,
So
good,
we're
thank
back
you.
on track. That's the best I can tell you at this
Okay.
moment.
Just a related item, you guys forbid us to look at the Excel spreadsheet, and that if we had that, we could tell where that number came from and what it was.
Okay,
So that's making our job
I have a
harder.
spreadsheet if you like.
You have the spreadsheet of this?
You want me to see that number?
How did you get that? I thought we were forbidden.
We're not forbidden.
You
Anybody-
You
can
can
make your
convert
own.
it, but you don't have the formula. Took it from
Oh
conversion.
my gosh, so you don't think I could add up a column of numbers?
yeah, you can convert it yourself.
I did. But just
Yeah, I did
because that's
too.
for my own curiosity,
Are-
not because of anything
Yeah.
No,
else,
no,
right?
and the reason you're not, the reason we don't supply it is it's been the advice that we've been given
By council.
from council and the municipal association. They feel very strongly that that not happen. So, again,
Even for budget committee members.
yep, well, if you get it, everybody gets it.
Okay. So Dina's the only one who has the actual spreadsheet.
As far as I know, I have what you have,
Yeah,
unless
I hope
you
she's
converted it.
an expert.
Yeah, well, when I converted it, I lose the formulas.
Yeah,
It's
me
just
too.
text.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a question we're going to,
But she's manually inputted some numbers in the spreadsheets, so they're not all formula.
That's true.
Just because you get it in Excel rather than.
John, the problem is that line is outside the formula for that category.
so it's within, my understanding, does doesn't matter, my understanding.
Yeah, I don't think it's part of what we're talking about.
Okay,
I can't make any, there's no formula that's gonna bring that back in.
Yeah.
It's not part of the subtotal for that category.
okay, where'd we go? Personnel, planning and zoning. The one minor change I think you saw from an earlier version was department requested $2,506 for regional planning commission dues. Obviously, we hadn't picked up yet what they wanted this year, which was $2,680 and change.
$174.32 more.
It's not a really big deal, so we just came down slightly. There's nothing very dramatic in there, I don't believe. General government buildings payroll, you notice the first line, payroll is $32,108. That's for 22 hours. The same person that is on that payroll actually has a full-time job. Part of it is 22 hours here, and the rest of it is running the transfer station. So you will see the rest of that person's salary. in
Yeah,
that
and he's
line.
working on the highway department.
And he is actually working for the highway department, and he will be doing some parking lot snow plowing this winter.
Gosh,
He's a busy boy.
he has a new baby too.
Yes, he does.
A lot.
He's a gold mine. And we'll find somebody who can do all of it.
We're trying to,
With
very
a
hard to
smile.
keep
He
him.
finally got his CDL now too, so.
Did he?
Excellent.
According to Scott.
He was foolish to do that.
Okay,
And I noticed you mentioned that when we get to cemeteries, I thought we were through, the contract for the mowing went up by almost $1,000.
it went up about 10%.
And, you mentioned last time, this is between the department and you, and that was, you mentioned last time that you hadn't gotten the contract.
I believe
Yeah.
we've gotten the contract, and that's why that's 10,890 where we had estimated, we just took last year's
Yeah.
figure. If you go down to line 112, perpetual care expense, we're still on page 3. You see, select board and department requesting $3,700, which is up $1,000 for cemetery employees' expenses. We believe, I think this is for a new software package that they're going to.
Yeah, they mentioned that.
Right, he talks about that, yeah.
Yep, good. We have the cemetery trustees and the selectmen agree that the stipend for the sexton should go up, doing quite a bit of extra work.
Well, that was also based on
That's
the
the
time when he
same.
was a full-time employee also, so.
Okay, so,
Can I ask a question?
yes,
Academy building, is that used to the fullest extent? You think? I mean, it's a lovely building and it's a cornerstone in Lyme Center Village certainly, but I just wonder if the town knows it's there, town people know it's there and use it.
I think they know it's there, they do use it, we sometimes have yoga, we have other activities, there are occasional, I think, parties there. CCL is now located there, and they
That's
have
right.
quite a few activities there.
Okay.
I would love to see some committee meetings up there, but it is kind of a drop.
Conservation Commission meets up there.
That's right.
We used to
It's
always
the
meet
main-
up there as Conservation Commission.
I tried to get the CRJC to meet there, but they like the closeness of Thetford to the interstate, so we meet in that library instead, but
Yep,
it's a perfectly suitable
it's a,
for a fairly large
Yeah.
meeting, actually. Yeah.
yep.
Okay, all right.
It does have a slight limitation in the parking can be challenging if it's either winter time or mud season, but.
Yeah, or dark.
Yes, okay,
Yeah, all right, thanks, Judy.
you're welcome.
And if, I found there was difficulty in using it, so you have to have insurance.
Insurance.
That's an issue.
So that is an issue, and we've spent hours talking about that, and if you come in under CCL,
You
But
can use their insurance.
you can use their insurance, as long as the CCL policy they have covers what it is that you're doing, and then there's a limit to the number of people.
Okay,
But
right,
it's, that is kind of a bugaboo for up there.
yeah.
And I think there was one event in the bet that was your.
Well, we had a problem with that with some of the yoga classes too over the years. They, instructors now have their insurance.
I can't say, but whoever is up there has insurance.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But we forced them to get insurance to hold their classes.
One of the things with all the buildings that I think is a guesstimate is the number of gallons for heating fuel.
Mhm.
So we have some best
you?
guesses here.
Yeah.
And so we've done the cemetery, moving, insurance, advertising, general government, police.
Police wages.
Yes, thank you. You'll notice that the select board has reduced the request for wages for payroll. We relooked again at what Sean was asking for and what we think the reality is going to be. And we think if we have enough money for 2 full-time people, however that filters out, one person, probably the chief will go into part-time, and he'll be advisory, maybe 10 or 12 hours a week, and then hopefully get to retire. So we felt that funding 2 full-time people is more accurate. And that's the number you see there, 187,738.
That's a big reduction.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's-
We've got let's see, we've got some overtime in there, and then the benefits we calculated for two families. So 2 people, family plan,
Mhm.
again, who knows, but,
Right, cause by that time Cameron, is that the?
Cam?
Yeah, he'll have been on for a while, so he'll know the ropes and be able to help with the new person.
one would suppose so, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Now, was he hired with the understanding that he'd fleet up when Sean retires?
You know, I can't really answer that, Dick,
Mhm.
but, he's a sergeant, he's not a patrolman, he has some good experience. And, so, let me see, what else do we have?
That's a help, that's a big help.
So it's 8.2% increase with that reduction in the 3rd full-time salary.
8.82.
Yes, thank you. For fire is another one that we kind of took a hard look at. I think a lot of these guys have sort of borne the brunt of cutting to the bone, but we can't just give everybody everything they need, so we did, under administration, agree they needed more money, but we cut them in half to $1,750 to start, maybe gradually increase that. Let's see, what are the biggest, the other things that
Cut back the
jumped up
chief's
the-
salary a little bit.
the chief's salary, we put back down to, let me find where it is, I think we put it back down to what it was last year. So they went from 5,000 up to 6,250, and we
Left him
felt
at
that we put it back
6250.
down to 6,250. And I think that gives us,
Well, there were 2 big hits on equipment, or 3 on equipment, 2. Where you cut their request down in 160 by 1,500 and in
yeah, that was
169
major
by
equipment,
4,000.
and, they'd asked for 35, and we went down to 2. Where's the other equipment?
a
There is
fast squad at
Yes,
169.
the fast squad, we also reduced them down. There may be an opportunity to look at taking some funding for them out of either capital reserve fund that we might have that covers it, or seeing if some of the stuff they need at the end of the year we might have to get, or we might have to do warrant articles. But to do the operating budget with such a big impact, we felt was not a very good way to go.
And you also took a hit in the and the forestry in the next line,
Yep.
which is the same people.
It's the same people and it's the same, and, we explained it to them, they weren't necessarily happy, but they're gonna try and work with us, and
But the insurance, why, is it the same or do, there's
Where-
no an increase in it?
there's no increase in the insurance, it's 67, 65. It's been that for years. Are you looking at line 157?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's why there's still 0% there.
What kind of insurance is it?
I think it's a personal liability insurance, it
I
covers.
think it's a disability insurance in case one of the volunteers
When they
gets
go out
injured.
and if they get injured, they're covered.
Right. Who sets that? Usually the insurance company. I'm surprised they haven't increased it.
It is.
Well, don't say.
Yeah, right.
All right, I can say what I can remember from when it came, and it came because the volunteers were covered only at, quote, the 40% or 60% of their wages if they're injured. And most of our volunteers are an awful lot more than the minimum wage.
Yeah,
So I had to go out and get a private insurance policy to cover them with a more realistic value and amounts if they were injured responding and
So-
on duty,
so it's a
Okay.
disability insurance.
primarily, an injury disability, yes. And it's in lieu of paying the volunteers. Because the trouble with the pay is they come
Disability,
under
workman's
workman's comp and they can only get X
Right.
percent of their pay, which is nothing.
Zero.
And that was how that line originated.
Okay,
And it's cheap compared to what it could cost us for firefighting.
are we good?
Yes.
Okay, highways and streets. We sort of went the same way as with everybody else. We did
Motor
note,
fuel.
yeah, we did note that there are now 4 full-time regular guys. They've been together for over a year now. They get along, they're working well. I think they're doing a great job. At least those are the reports we get, so both that and their benefits went up just the same as everybody else's. Their propane, they've raised it a little bit, but, and who knows what it will end up being. Then we did the motor fuel. Scott felt that for the regular season, they could go down a little bit on the motor fuel. Reality is, this winter, well, we're almost in the winter, so that's a different budget piece, but by next summer, who knows where it'll be. It might go up, it might go down.
Up and down.
Not usually. Everything else is pretty much the same there.
So can I ask a question about 207, which is just the salt?
Yep,
In 2021, we spent under 4,000, but we're budgeting $20,000 a year.
I don't know if
That's the calcium chloride spray for the
that's
gravel
the
roads.
summer, it's not the winter salt.
Oh, well, whatever
But there's-
it is,
Yeah.
it's just calcium chloride, right? But-
but
So
it seems like-
this year, they've spent 86. I don't know if they're anticipating spraying more or not, but he felt he wanted that line, because they think they are having really good success with it on the dirt roads.
Is it calcium chloride or magnesium chloride?
I think he said he was using magnesium.
I think so
Did he
too.
say magnesium?
Yeah, I don't think you'd wanna use calcium chloride on, for dust and potholes,
That's why it works better.
that's right.
Okay,
Just put chloride, 20,000 gallon.
20,000 gallons. So,
Yeah, I don't remember
I
if
think
we
he had
didn't ask, I
a
don't
full
remember
tank
asking about that
carryover
when he
too.
was here,
Mhm.
like why.
Yeah.
It's just so, it's out of line with what, I mean, even though we
actually
spent twice as much, or maybe, slightly more than twice as much this year,
It's still
we're
not-
still
doubling it again.
well
basically.
over, we're
Yeah.
well over the budget. I mean, we're budgeting twice, more than twice what they're spending this year.
Can you
And it was
check on that
significantly
line?
more in '21.
I actually have a question on that, Jen, on the whole budget. Why are we basing why can't we see a column that says percent change from amount spent instead of percent change from amount budgeted? I
Because we
think-
don't
We
have
don't
the
know
total
last
spent.
year yet,
But,
same thing happens
but
with the
we
school.
have previous years and we could say total amount spent to date and percent change, but it's helpful to know if what was spent in the past and how much we're asking to increase from past years. Because,
Don't
If-
you have that in column C?
well, I actually have a question later on why we have $1 million difference between what we've taxed and what we budgeted, and where's that $1 million coming from? And I can ask it later.
Thank you. Let's get through this and I think we'll have an answer for
Okay,
you there.
thanks.
And you're welcome to look at those columns. I mean, we give you those columns as to what we spent to date and what we spent in the previous year. But the way that we have done this budget, I suppose another budget committee could do it a different way, but this is typically the way we do it. And when we report it to the state, it pulls off of this, the way the state needs it
Okay.
reported to them.
I
Okay.
guess we could, you could look at the actuals
Mhm.
from, 21 and get a percentage between what we're.
Right, which is what Jen's doing.
But.
Sort of, but the cost this year, I mean, that's always the problem, we have the same problem on the school board,
Yeah.
where you don't know last year's costs until like you're halfway through the current fiscal year. The school is even crazier,
Yes.
right, than,
Yeah.
than the way this is.
But,
But we've had that conflict and we've talked about it even on the school board, like, why are we always comparing budget to budget? What's happening with these surpluses? We're putting lots of money into capital reserve funds, does it need to be there? And where's the sanity? And I had a conversation with my CFO at work once, and he gets frustrated with, he lives in Etna, but he thinks that the numbers should be corrected for back based on actual, like there's no way we would get away with that with our board. But it's a small privately held company and we're able to come up with those numbers in a more, like in real time, in a way that it
Yeah,
just
there's
doesn't happen
really
with
a
municipalities.
difference between private companies and
Yeah.
corporations and municipalities, and access to money is very different as well. And having, my experience having been on a board where we cut everything, okay, if it was X last year, this year it's gonna go up by 1%, and you get to the end of the year and there's some change in the economy, and Dick and I were serving on that board when we thought we were gonna have to write personal checks to people to pay
Wow.
their salaries. That's cutting it a little too
A little too
close.
Yeah.
I don't know about Dick, but I can't afford to do that. So-
Traditionally, government goes budget to budget rather than spent to the next year,
Okay.
budget year. That's traditionally the way government budgeting documents are prepared.
Okay.
Popping along to the winter payroll, which we're just going to be coming into any time now. We'll see where we are with this. This is another one where we've got the motor fuel pretty close to, so far in this current cycle, we budgeted 20,000 and we've already spent 17,000, and we've got November and December coming, so.
Well, it's a matter of when you fill up the tank.
Well, but how much you're gonna use if you have a bunch of storms between now and December 31st. Materials, went up some, but it's kind of the same thing, we're trying to hold the line there.
Contracted services, 215,
Yep, 27,
can that come down just a little bit?
it was voted this year at 27, and we don't know what it's gonna come up to,
But
but,
he hasn't
last-
spent 10,000 in a year yet.
yep, he didn't last year, so,
He didn't in 21, no.
right. So that might be another one, line
We can shave something
215.
I don't wanna cut him short, because if he's needed,
If
he's
he
needed,
needs
but
those people and they're
but
expensive. and
there's a lot more there than
Yeah, I think he felt,
Particularly with Matt helping out so much.
yeah, but he's gonna be pulling his fuel for his truck from up there too, so he's
No, I'm
adding to
talking
that.
about.
Oh, the
Contracted
contracted
services,
services.
yeah.
Services, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Well, you know, that always comes down to how many storms you've got,
yeah,
and whether you hire somebody so that you get the roads plowed sooner, which is what you do with contracted services,
Well,
you put another truck on the
we
road.
do have a person regularly that gets hired to help out on the big storms. And it does help Lyme get the roads.
He does, but
Yeah, I know what you're saying. We'll look at that one, line 215.
Thank you.
Solid waste. Matt went through here, tried to keep things really close. And he actually went through there with us, so his 72,000 for solid waste collection, he thought we could reduce a little bit from 68,8. That's line 236. Disposal has gone up a little, like you said, or it's actually down from what was voted this year. It's projected to be up from the actual of 21. Said it's a really difficult thing to project because as with all of the haul charges, the disposals, depends on weight, depends on how many times it gets pulled, and what people are, how many people are using it.
All right, the one thing I wanna say about the disposal end of the contract, of this budget, is as things start creeping up, primarily fuel is one of the drivers of it. We're never gonna be able to charge enough realistically for our paper throw bags to make this a in and out line. But I think we should look again at the charges for the green bags to more realistically reflect how much we're spending to get rid of full green bags.
So it's actually stickers now, but look at the sticker costs.
yeah.
Yeah, disposal.
In other words, I think it's worth looking at the fee for service
Okay.
in the solid waste department.
Well, what are we currently paying? Is it $3 a sticker? Is that right? I
Mhm.
think I buy
That's
5 for 15.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's $3 and you can do a 30-pound bag. It's not a 13-gallon like kitchen bag. It's like double
It's
that,
bigger.
right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a yard waste.
I only have to go like every 3 weeks, let alone.
Right, yes, but that, I think that's right.
Yeah.
And so $3 a sticker,
So
we
maybe
went to
up
4.
But we did just increase it.
Couple
It's
years
different, a
ago.
couple of years ago, we had the choice, you could do, it was like $1.50 or $3 or
Whatever.
something, and then we just went to
Went to
$3.
stickers.
Yeah.
Well, we went to the stickers because they were easier and you didn't have to
Right.
store them the way you had to store the bags, which
Yeah.
was another cost.
Yeah, the only argument I have against the way we're doing it now is that because it's $3 a bag, I kind of liked it better when you had the $1.50, because I obviously use a 13-gallon garbage can bag.
Right,
So basically what's happening in my household, and probably a lot of households, is I'm taking 2 bags and putting it inside of another bag.
Right.
And none of these bags are biodegradable to my knowledge, right? So we're creating more plastic waste.
Yep.
And, you know, I realize that I could pay $3 to throw out every bag, but I don't want to. And it's not even, I just don't wanna go to the hardware store that much and buy like stickers. Honestly, it's like more laziness than actually being like
Well, the
cost
country store
sensitive.
sells them too.
Yeah, I don't go there very often either.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I don't know, so, but, you know, just to
I
throw
think
that
it's a
out
matter
there.
of really looking at it where we are, because the first time when we upped them once, we had a drop in the tonnage,
Mhm.
because people decided to do something else, and a few people went to Floyd's
Mhm.
rather than taking the stuff down Sunday or Wednesday afternoon. So you can get the price up to the point where people are gonna hire Floyd.
well, let's go for Floyd.
I know Vermont does a lot of composting.
Yeah.
The city of Lebanon
I go
had
to
a
them.
small company that
They
was doing
compost now.
composting.
You can
Yeah.
compost if you take it to Lebanon.
But that's something, I mean, that's something we could think about, where we would have potentially less tonnage in the waste if
Well,
we
Lyme-
had a,
Lyme folks can go to Lebanon, that's
Mhm.
permissible, and in fact during COVID, a lot of people went there. I'm not sure where you would find a place to be able to add compost
Mhm.
into the, where we have it, the compact.
Cause they,
yeah, I don't know
they
how
can
like
accept it.
composting works
Well, they,
totally, but.
Lebanon accepts compost, every, like meat, everything,
Yeah,
yeah. But they turn it around directly and they put it in their landfill, so they don't, I don't think they have to store it for long.
right.
That would be
They don't
easy.
actually compost it, they dump
Well,
it in the
they
landfill.
use it, it's like
But it's
backfill,
helping to
right?
Well,
degrade stuff.
they're also collecting methane in Lebanon from the landfill
Yeah,
and recycling it, using it.
but they, yeah, I mean,
They're
they
kind
are
of like a whole
composting in the sense
one-stop
that it's,
shop.
right.
They
It's
don't
not
have to move the
in-
compost to
Right.
another
Yeah.
location.
One of the
essentially.
things you find, we went into this with our regular recycling, it's very hard in a municipality to have, and we ran into this with separation of your recyclables. And as a result of, because there's almost all the time it would get contaminated. And so therefore, we ended up going to the zero sort, which reduces the effectiveness of recycling when you go to a system like that, I think. But, you know, there are always people that don't know the difference between green glass and clear glass. And when you add in composting, and then you have rules for recycling where you can't use you can't put saran wrap or those little plastic grocery bags in it. I mean, it gets out of control.
Can we please get back to the budget?
Thank you,
All right.
John.
Okay, health agencies, every year these are looked at, most years they are given what they asked for. I don't think the select board made any changes here. So that would be a budget committee discussion if you felt that that was something you wanted to do.
I got shouted down last year.
Yes. The health officers, pretty much,
Tri-County Cap was the only one that went up, right?
yes, they went up.
Which one went up?
Tri-county cap line, 254 by 4.18%.
Red Cross went down 500.
Yeah,
That's primarily the fuel
Red
assistance
Cross-
program.
Fuel
I guess we
assistance,
didn't-
yeah.
Yeah, we didn't hear from them.
So I'm sure that's, they're gonna need more money.
Okay.
Where are you now?
We just turned to page 8, and looking at the total for health agencies, which is line 264. Quoted at town meeting last year was 26,815, and this year we're up 3.54% with a request for 27,764. The health officer is at $600. You went up $100 from last year.
Remember, the big thing on the welfare is the revolving fund, which we'll see in the capital budget. We have the
Yeah.
two,
So,
that fund.
the Overseer Welfare, Grafton County Senior Citizens Council, and Public Health Council are collectively up 8.29%. The total is on line 270.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, it's
They're up $900.
the Public Health Council, we hadn't been,
it was
That's-
moved from another section.
it
Yeah.
was, it used to be in the
in the
other
house.
section,
Yeah.
yep.
Same organization, they changed their name though.
Yeah, they,
Used to be Muskoma Health.
you got them in twice then.
I don't think so.
No, I think,
Well, what is line 255?
right, it's zeroed out, oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm free on that.
Well, they're not.
You know, that's a good catch, Sue.
Yeah.
It is a good catch.
Sue, how did you do that?
It's double counting.
She must have read it.
Unbelievable.
Let's pay attention.
I can't believe you got that.
Well, I'm not a fan of the Public Health Council, that's why when I saw it, I wasn't a fan of it once, but when I saw it twice,
Yeah, I wonder
You know,
if
this
that-
group is so much friendlier without Zoom going on. Okay,
We'll take it out of one of them.
yeah, we'll take it out of one.
See, if we had the spreadsheet, we could easily sort and find all sorts of, if there are any duplicates.
You can do it now.
You're right, I'll do it.
The prior
Okay.
one we had-
Parks and Recreation,
wait,
um,
Big increase in the mowing contract.
page 8.
8 still?
Yep.
Okay, there
The
we go.
mowing contract 278 also increased, I believe it's the same company. And they do the parks, the recs fields, the.
Cemeteries.
Yep, and the Lyme Common and some other areas. So, then we've got, you will notice line 282, the porta potty has
We talked about that.
gone way up. We did talk about that. It's now gonna be year-round, 1. I advocated for 2, so that there could be one by the boat landing, and, I did not prevail. It's too much money.
Mm.
So, then, everything, beach electricity is up. That's just the way it goes with electricity these days.
Can you explain 290?
Yeah, it's a big change.
Yes, the beach staff monitors, we have not needed them as much as the $10,000 would have indicated, so we cut them down to 5,000. The first year we used them, they were at 4,885, so we think 5,000 is realistic. Quite candidly, we are not sure that we will be able to get either the pond program going or lifeguards next year, in which case the monitors are really valuable. They do extra duty, and they have been very good at what they are hired to do. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them at $5,000 or close to it. And the rec director wages and other miscellaneous, so that's, the lifeguard, you will see that is line 288. We did punch it up because some people felt we couldn't get lifeguards because we weren't paying enough.
Right.
Although I believe you also heard from Nina that there just aren't any to be had.
So why is the rec director wages up more than others?
Because he's actually been putting in a huge amount of time, and we felt that he was underpaid.
Okay.
That will be looked at again, by the rec commission, but it was 9.47 calculated when we were first going to do the higher salary. And library, again, I think you had a really good explanation from Judy when she was here. We did not,
The cleaning is
You
up.
did make some changes to what they requested.
well, $1,
Mhm.
I don't think, Dick, we did.
Bottom line, it's only 20 grand difference.
215, oh, you're right. 054 and 215,
Yeah,
503, it went up a little bit.
Do you want it, this is what she handed out at the meeting at the Board of Trustees Library, if you want to take that for reference.
I can
So
take
there's
it,
a
but
difference in
what-
the salaries and wages.
Regular.
So I'm guessing, we got library 301 wages.
Yeah.
The library causes special problems in terms of dealing with their
Yeah.
budget because of the way the statute protects libraries. And I believe the budget committee has authority to cut them, but I don't think the selectmen do under the statute, but I may be wrong there.
I don't know if we have the authority or not, but it would not be our inclination to do it. She does work with Dina initially when she's setting up her, John, if you wanted to leave a copy of that or send an email of it to Dina.
Sure.
We could certainly look at it.
I mean, she said 10,000 for cleaning, cause the cleaning wasn't enough. She was, I think, spending $350 a month or something. So
Janitorial.
Well, she had a special arrangement.
She wants 18,000 for cleaning.
She wants 18,200, and we didn't change that.
That's probably, and then heat's gone up. And then salaries and benefits, those are the biggest changes.
Right, from this year, which was 194.5 something, and she's up to 10% increase. Thank you. I didn't really have much else to delve into. It's a 2.94% increase over last year's budget. That was
The
approved.
total,
The total.
2.88?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking at a previous one. Thank you for doing that for me.
2.88.
2.88, yep.
So is there a conservation commission budget, or no, or is that not
Yes.
budgeted through us?
It is, Conservation of
Did I-
Natural Resources.
I missed that, but I have a question about it.
Did I skip over it?
No, I just probably missed it, but
It's on the bottom of the page, where the library.
330.
Below the
330,
library.
thank you. So if we have,
Page 9,
if there's a land use change tax
yes,
of $40,000,
yes.
does the law require that to go back to the Conservation Commission directly, not to the town budget?
That the
This
town
You
town-
voted
decides
to
that.
put it in
The
that.
town has
town does-
voted several times
Okay, so
To-
where does that show up? 'Cause-
that would be, I believe, on the revenue side.
Cause the Conservation Commission
It's in the treasurer's report on the every year.
Okay,
She has sort of a spreadsheet of the activity in the conservation fund, and it's divided into several different categories. But it's in the treasurer's report in the town meeting.
so if they got that last year, do they need to increase their budget at all? I mean, they've got a lot of money.
What they can use it for is specified by statute. They can't use it for certain things.
I see, okay,
They use it for, I believe, land purchase.
all right.
That's all, I think that's all they can use. it for.
Okay.
No,
Land
the,
purchasing.
the budget that the town provides, the $2,108. Line,
Got it, 337.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the items that they can't use conservation funds for.
Okay, got it, thank you,
So that's why that's.
thank you.
And they subsidize to
So,
about a third of the milfoil treatment is out
before
of
we
conservation
look
fund.
at
I was down there.
before we look at the capital, the worksheet for capital reserve funds, do we wanna ask Wilkes, who possibly is still there, if he has any comments or if he has any questions?
Or did he hear what we're doing?
Judy, I have a question. How in the world did you keep the total budget to 2.88 when it looked like everything was increasing so much?
I was,
If you use a big paintbrush for me, what, I can see what's gone up a lot, but what's being taken away to make it 2.88?
Well, some, like the police third position full-time.
But that's still an increase. the police.
Is still an increase, but we nibbled away at a lot of smaller line items,
Yeah, there's a lot of negatives in there.
and
Well, what are we gonna notice is missing? Is anybody gonna notice something missing? If you use,
if I thought there was something that was going to be noticeably missing, that was going to be a big oops, I certainly wouldn't have agreed to do this budget, but I think we've got a budget, unless we have some kind of cost, some kind of storm event or huge cost that we can't anticipate at this point. I think we'll be tight, but we'll be okay. That's, and again, you just never know, but the three select board members want to try and keep a line on increases, but we want to support our staff. We give them the resources they need. The fire department, the forest fire, they need some equipment. We can't give it all to them at once.
No, I'm not arguing about the
Some-
increases, I'm just asking,
Yeah,
how did
that's
you
right.
keep it down like this?
Yeah,
What's missing?
it feels like it shouldn't add up, just
Yeah.
like,
Well,
looking generally
I
at the.
think when you get a department head who tells you what they need, they tell you what they would like to have, not pie in the sky, but what they think would make their job a lot easier and a lot better. And then the selectmen have the unenviable position of going through and saying, well, I think you can do without this, and I think you can do without that. And
Right, yeah, I'm not talking about that so much as,
And Judy, I wanna first off say, I really appreciate that. That's really hard, and that's good. But actually, I'm picking up on what both
yeah,
John and James have said. One way to make it only a 2.6%, 2.8% increase would be a mistake.
that could be, and I
And
think
so
everybody
that's-
goes home
And that's what,
puts these under your pillows and sleeps on it, and
right.
I'm actually making a joke, but I'm serious, because, we spend hours going
Oh,
over
I'm
it.
sure.
No, but
And you can find stuff, if you find it, please, because next week is the time to say,
Okay,
you
right.
really screwed up here, and let's relook at this area,
Mhm.
and,
Okay,
Well, I think part of it is that some of the percent increases are small dollars. In other words, you have $1,000 and you have a $200 increase, that's 20%. So you fix on the 20%, but there are a lot of line items where the budget went up 0.5% or down.
Yep.
yeah.
And they're-
But
they could
that's
be
$80,000
big
or
items.
$100,000, so
Right.
you can't
But-
just take the percent total and.
That's
and-
true,
And
but-
let that drive what you're thinking.
if we're talking, I haven't looked at this with a fine tooth comb, but it just seems like our largest expenses really are salaries.
Yep.
And the
Salaries
salaries
and
are all going
benefits,
up 8.7%. So it's hard to see how the overall operating costs can only go up.
Well, there's
2%.
$113,000 in legal expenses that went
Well,
down, for
that's right,
example.
that's one of the things right there, I realize, and then there's like 70,000 interest, right? That's less, so, but, I think it's worth making the point, and we should all take a close look and
I
and see
really would
what's
appreciate that,
going on,
because
it's
many
hard to
eyes,
do
and there
that.
may be something that we really did miss, I hope not, but.
I hope not to, but I mean,
But that's why we do this a couple weeks in a row,
Mhm,
and then, the way we are gonna try and compensate a little bit for even that, and maybe some warrant articles that may come out that we haven't really talked about. The capital reserve fund worksheet last year, and this is just really preliminary, we haven't delved into this very much. We put $410,000 into these capital reserves. So this year, we went through and we looked at where we think we're gonna need money in the future, where we wanna keep them full enough that if we need them, we can use them.
Mhm.
But in some instances here, again, we shaved a little bit off while still trying to keep them viable for use. And we're projecting, we're hoping, I sound like the political pundits last night on TV. We're projecting 380,000
Mhm.
going into these funds this year.
And how will that, I just can't remember how we write that. Is that collected through taxation, or is
Yes.
that
Yep.
like
These are-
surplus, is that
No.
like general
The
fund?
surplus, any surplus that we have goes into the undesignated
Okay.
fund, which usually is used to offset taxes if
Yep.
we think we need to do that. So this comes from taxes, but then when we get the warrant articles that look to take, for instance, for the forest fire equipment that they want, that they asked for $3,000, we could possibly take that out of the firefighting safety equipment capital reserve fund.
Depends on what it is.
Yes, it does, but I'm just making a for instance. And then, so that money does not come from taxes, because it's already been put into the fund, and now we're just taking it out. when you get the warrant articles that are asking for something else, that's money raised from taxes.
There's one warrant article that we vote on for increasing the capital reserve funds by 380,000. And it's specified under there to be collected from taxes. All the other warrant articles we vote on for each of the capital reserve funds are specified not from taxes.
Unless there's one that is from taxes.
Right.
Sometimes,
But
right?
they're all of them, the 380,000 is voted on once and then excluded from taxes after that, after
Right,
all the warrant
when it
articles
comes
we
out.
vote on.
But you don't have a column that shows what you plan, what you're gonna recommend to take out of the capital reserve.
We haven't
That's
done that
another
yet.
line, that's another series of lines.
Another column, hopefully.
No, it's another page that would look basically like this.
It-
Okay, but it's gonna be each fund that you wanna take money out of, you will have a recommendation. for.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a separate warrant article for each fund.
I understand it's separate warrant, I'm just,
Yes.
so,
Yeah, yeah, we haven't developed that
Yeah,
yet.
okay.
But if,
All right, that's good, that's all,
Okay.
I'm happy.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then with these funds, there's, there's some designation or list, you can spend the fund on things
Yes.
X, Y, and Z, right?
yeah,
But one of the things that's frustrating with the school budget is that with our funds, we often can't we may be over in our maintenance lines, but we can't actually access the maintenance funds unless we're over, budget, unless we're over
Everything.
budget on the bottom line. The only fund we can access sort of in a free way is SPED, like our special education
Right.
fund.
so this,
So
if you look at
we
this,
can dip into these even if we're
yes,
over budgeted at another line.
that's not the, so most of these have to be voted on at town meeting.
Mhm.
So there's no dipping into them unless the town meeting, you have a warrant article for whatever it is.
I see the $3,000 for the fire equipment, and we'll vote on taking that, as long as we can do that, right?
Right,
We'll vote on
that's right,
taking it
as
out
long
of
as
the
it
fund.
qualifies. But there are a
Interesting.
few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are a few of them that the select board can
Mhm.
and one
dip
that,
into. And, yeah, the OS, who's, town poor, oh, yeah,
the town poor is
Or
also one
expendable
that
trust.
you don't vote on, yeah.
Right.
so.
Is the annual leave trust fund, is that the difference between being a trust fund and a capital reserve fund?
No,
No,
Because
the
we-
annual leave trust fund is, we're building that up so that if someone, say they retire and they have a large amount of a retirement benefit that is not anticipated in our operating budget,
Mhm.
we have to pay them.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to make a fund that will cover those instances.
yeah, it's important to know, some of the funds you have to vote on everything that comes out of.
Mhm.
Some of the funds, the selectmen or the school board
Right.
or the keeper of the poor are designated agents that can take it out for the designated purpose of that particular fund. And the classic ones are what I call them the emergency funds. For example, the emergency equipment repair fund is that way. The bridge fund is that way if you have a bridge collapses or something, you see, you have an emergency you would vote on.
That's the overseer.
Yeah, if we don't know how much she spent this year, right?
We don't have that number yet, and we're plugging in another 20, but Dina and she were going to talk, and she was going to try and get a number to us, because it may be more this winter.
More or less, this is
Well,
already,
you've gotta look at what the balance is in that fund.
there's already 21,000 there, so.
Yeah, but
But
with
how
the
much does she spend
fuel,
per year?
she's,
Fuel,
you know, and
yeah.
apartments and food, and there's,
Yeah, her expenses have varied anywhere from 5,000 to 32,000 if you look at it over the years. And there's no way to really project what her expenses are gonna be, which is why that fund was created. Because the Constitution requires us to pay it whether we
yeah, it
appropriate
looks
the
like
money
she
or not.
spent
Right.
8,950 more or less.
Yeah, I was thinking it was around 10,000 a year.
That she spends. Yeah, I think there's been a couple of years where it was a lot more, but really depends on a lot of
You can get one
circumstances.
very expensive family sometimes.
So, let's see, you had some questions, and I think we talked about them, didn't we?
No,
Just
my
say-
question?
Well,
Okay,
just incidentally, that if you do take that legal expense out.
Right.
103,000.
Yeah, it makes.
It's not an
our
expense,
increase
it's an
more like
income.
Yeah,
It's an income.
okay.
That's
It
a
would
problem.
be, it would be more like 7%.
11%, the total municipal budget was,
I
you're
just,
getting 7?
yeah, I just subtracted 103 from the 22 budget.
Okay.
And that would be, make it look like a 7% increase.
Okay,
So that explains.
I got 11 on Dina's
so
spreadsheet.
I've got, so the answer, I think, is the reason that the tax effort looks different is because some of that is revenues. Surplus goes into the undesignated fund.
So the revenues are,
So voted
don't
appropriations.
count the capital reserve funds, right?
Right,
So that's about 450,000, so the rest of the revenues are mostly licenses and fees is 450,000.
we'll do a revenue sheet here probably pretty soon, and you'll see what it is, but if you looked in last year's town report, you can see what last year's
So
was.
it's, and then some of it's surplus,
Surplus is what's
unspent.
left unspent, right.
And so, can we know roughly how much that was? Cause
It's in the town report.
It would be in the town report,
it's different for school and town.
No, school does not have a surplus that they can carry forward.
they have, if they have surplus, it's designated where it goes into special accounts.
Okay,
If we vote on,
If
because
you
we
vote on
vote
it.
on that,
Right.
otherwise our surplus would go back to the general fund.
Right,
Of the town.
Yes, and then it's used, then DRA offsets the next year's tax rate.
well, that's what I'm wondering, how much was that, do you know?
Last year, like not a lot, $50,000,
So,
around $50,000
So
last year.
I'm getting a difference of $1.1 million from our taxes that we've collected and how much we've budgeted. And I might be wrong on exactly what the years, but I'm wondering,
Well, because we
that's
also,
mostly revenues, I guess.
well, did you account for any warrant articles for
I
last year?
added-
Because there's the
I added the capital
operating.
reserve tax.
Because there's the operating budget and then the warrant articles. I'm trying to remember if the school had any, I don't think we had any significant warrant articles last year.
Didn't you? No, because your only things into the funds go from surplus, if you had surplus.
Yeah, we don't, I can't remember a year where we've actually raised money to
So
go into
Judy,
a fund.
Was
But-
there much surplus for the town then? Probably not much, right?
there usually is not much,
So it's mostly
and,
revenues then?
and when there is, if we know there's surplus, if we know that there are a couple of wish list items that
Yeah.
aren't crazy expensive, we try and pick those up so that they don't
Okay.
go further out. And what goes back in, I don't know, 50,000 maybe.
So that's
100.
actually reassuring that it's revenues because that means it's gonna happen regularly like that. We can almost count on it next year too.
A little bit of,
Well, 1.1 million difference. It helps, the revenues really help us
Oh.
not raise the taxes, in other
oh,
words.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, I didn't know that.
And, yes, so when you look at your tax bill, it's town, school, it's county, it's state.
And
so-
state school. You have two school budgets in that, actually.
So I think that, yeah, so the revenues are, sort of, we look at them, but they come in a different way, they aren't.
Well, that's why our taxes didn't go up much this year. That's why they went down a little bit.
Well, I think this year too, the state did their funny swept thing, where
It's hard.
they, like usual, okay, so the state usually raises $363 million with the swept tax, and the swept tax is typically about $2 across the board, across the state. But they had a $100 million surplus, so this year, they're only collecting 263, without actually changing adequacy aid. So our swept tax went down, I can't remember what it is, instead of it being $2, it's like down to $1.30 or something, but that's coming right back next year.
On our tax rate?
Yeah, because I mean, unless they vote to do this again,
What does SWEP mean?
statewide education property tax.
And it's a one-time?
No,
No,
every year.
we pay it every
That's the big-
year.
That's the big
And
part of
it's
your tax.
It's actually really
Oh,
small.
Oh, small, okay.
The
Yeah.
school is the big part.
The school is a big part, so the
Right.
school, you know, our school rate is, I can't remember, so I don't wanna say the wrong, cause we're being
It's about
videoed
2/3
here.
of the tax rate.
With the swept tax, it's about 70% of our taxes is school, so that's local education property tax plus the swept tax. This year, the swept tax is going down by about a third relative to what you typically pay in a year. And that's true for every town across the state. But it's only for this year. I think it might be useful potentially, maybe as a school, we'll do that at school district meeting, to mention that, so that people know. Cause they're gonna get this bump back up
Yeah, it
next
was-
year, I think, unless they vote to do this again.
You never
But I
know
don't
with the
think
state.
they will, and they shouldn't, I mean, we could get into a conversation in another forum, but it was they shouldn't have done what they've done. It was a silly political ploy to
Well,
make
there
it
was
look
a
like
big
they
influx of money to
lowered
the
your
state from
taxes.
the COVID money.
Yeah,
The state got a
they
lot
could
of
have done
money.
other things with that $100 million. But anyway, they also held the donor towns harmless by giving them, because their taxes rate would have gone up theoretically, and they gave them the money to offset that. Anyway, it's a whole other conversation. Moving on.
Somebody
That's
brought
one
up,
reason why our taxes went a little down this year.
somebody brought up the question of the welfare funding earlier, and I had the numbers. Since we created that fund in 2006, the amount of money in addition to the 1,000 placeholder in the town budget that's gone to the poor has ranged from a low of 9,500 to a high of just over 40,000
40,000, wow.
for the poor.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
we've
why
had
we
some-
had to create that fund, because
we've
you
had
just
some
couldn't budget
Really
for it.
tough years
Yeah.
in there.
And
I
this
would
is,
say so.
Yeah, the recession, and don't forget, for a conservative state, if there is somebody in this town, whether they're a resident or not, and they're in dire straits, this town is required to take care of them. They could have just walked into town, or driven in, their car broke down, whatever happened, they're here, they need help, that's what this fund does. So it's,
So, I mean, that number you have, the $5,000 to $40,000 number that might have to come out of that, the town court fund
yeah,
is really useful. Do we have numbers like that for the other
Yes.
CRFs? Oh, good, because, you know, one of the questions that I actually asked Dina that wasn't gonna be able to get done today.
she's gonna get back to you.
She will, okay. So, but, you know, how much do we typically spend either per year or over a decade? You know, because maybe this fund spends $500,000 in a year, and then it goes along and we build it back up again. And so,
So a lot of that, actually, you probably could get from all the town reports.
right.
And which is another reason
It
it
sounds
may
like-
take a little while for Dina to get that to you.
well, I mean, I sent her my spreadsheets,
Oh, okay,
and she's gonna review them.
great. That's a really.
And
good
they
answer.
go back either to 2001 or when the fund was created.
That's plenty of
And
history.
what you have to be very careful for is, for some of the funds, you start out with, we replace a dump truck every X number of years. So that you get a spreadsheet going out 20 years as to when we're gonna have to buy a dump truck. And then you put in so much every year. And the problem being is you don't know how much a dump truck's gonna cost 10 years from now.
Right.
And the same thing goes with heavy equipment. And some of the things like this you have a spreadsheet like that for programming the fund, rather than looking at how much you spent in the past. Because if you look at how much you spent on vehicles in the past, it's a lot less than what you're gonna pay in the future.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
mean, we bought a grader for $160,000 and the last, and when it was replaced, it was what, 380
I can't remember, but it was,
for the replacement grader, you see. Same thing with a fire truck.
they
It
had the
went from
equipment.
yep,
160 to 500,000 for the fire truck.
It's a computer item.
So
So,
you can't just look at past
Right.
history.
I'd like just to mention, and what, I'd like the people on the committee to think about, putting back more into the fire chief's salary. I felt like, you know, his presentation was that his salary is used, to, as kind of a morale booster. You know, they spend that money, he spends the money amongst the volunteers. And it's not a lot, in the, if we're talking like another $1,000, I think it would, you know, just wanted people to think about that. Maybe we can talk about it next week. So we'll put that back.
do you recall, I don't remember what line that is.
That was 156.
Thank you.
It's been, well, I guess it was.
It was a big increase that he asked for this year over what it had been
5 to 8,
traditionally.
I think.
You went from 6250, he was looking to get 8,
Yeah,
so.
I think actually, yeah, it went from 5,000 to 6,250, and then he asked for 8,000. And that line increased, I think, a couple years before 2021. So, I don't have
Used to be
that.
$1,000.
That's what I was remembering, but I can't remember.
Don
how long
Albert
ago
took
that was.
$1,000 a year, but he was basically a volunteer fire chief.
Right, yeah, and I, you know, I know he spends a lot of time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, okay.
just something to consider.
Well, the
We're
same
not
thing,
making a formal
same thing's
motion
true in a
yet.
number of positions in town now.
Yeah.
Well, and you're certainly, I mean, that's what this committee should do, is either we don't agree with this increase, or we don't agree with how you cut it there, so. That's a good thing to bring up. to
And
us.
I think, Judy, if, when we, next meeting, we will look at, people will have a little time to digest what we did tonight and identify things that we think the budget committee might wanna change over what
Mhm.
is in the spreadsheet that we saw tonight. Also, the capital budget, and if you have that spreadsheet, which I think you worked on, and when we replaced the fire trucks
Yeah,
at X
I
number of
we have that.
dollars.
We have to update it.
Yeah, if we can get that updated for when we consider the capital reserve funds.
So next week,
Yeah. And we then have them shift to the school budgets. We have one before Christmas, I think, on the school
Yeah,
budget.
December 17th.
Whatever.
I could be wrong on the
Yeah.
I don't think it's
December,
that
but it's in
late, but
December.
it is December 14th.
14.
Hmm.
And then we do the school budget for a couple times, and we come back and we have one meeting, which is our final cut as to what we take to the public hearing,
Right,
for one more cut at the town budget after next week.
town and school, that's January 18th.
And that's when we vote what to take to the public hearing, which means we're pretty well there.
When do the select board make their final decision?
We will probably work on this through, even while the school is, talking to you about theirs. And then when we have what Dick was calling that discussion impossible, we used to call it a advisory vote on the town and school. So the budget committee says we're gonna take this to public hearing, that's mid-January, so we probably.
So we got another month, 2 months basically
We got at
before
least
we're.
another month to work on things, and, And then the public hearing, by public hearing, it has to be the budget committee's budget that goes to public hearing,
Right,
early February.
right.
And
But
you
it's-
can't make significant changes at the public hearing without holding a second public hearing.
And Dick, you presented to the town, I assume, because it's recommended by the budget committee, and it was said in the warrant article last year, the budget committee twice actually was listed. So do you present it? Seems fair.
Well, it's on the warrant, and the selectmen prepare the warrant, but I'm normally the one that reads whoever's the chairman of the budget committee
Good.
is normally the person that stands up and moves the operating budget.
It'll be in the town report, and that typically comes out 2 weeks before town meeting. So everybody has a chance to.
Hopefully. Sometimes we don't get it until the day of Little Town meeting.
So if I'm now editing and the PDF into an Excel sheet, and if I get something workable, I'm gonna share it with the committee. I don't know why it's
That's fine.
restricted like this. It's tying our hands, you're asking volunteers to spend more time doing this, and it seems ridiculous to
Okay.
me. I understand it's town council,
I
but
I
it really
understand
seems stupid.
your position, but at this point, that's the option, and I'm sorry.
Some things don't make any sense in government. Let's leave it at that.
Who was it that recommended, was it the New Hampshire Municipal Association?
The Municipal Association and, I'm not sure if it was town council or not, it might have been town council and somebody else.
It wasn't
all
DRA, was it?
Gave the advice,
It wasn't Department of Revenue.
I know what you just asked me, I was trying to think whether or not I knew the response to that, and I
Okay,
don't know.
Yeah, all right.
But they strongly suggested against doing that. You send out the PDF, if people wanna convert it, they have the option to convert it.
Sure, no, I understand, okay. I was just curious where it came from.
Yeah.
I'm falling on the same side of John, as I
Well,
don't
I-
understand.
I understand, I can hear you clearly, I
Yeah.
can understand your concerns, I have sympathy for those. That's,
Yeah.
I don't feel in a position to be able to change that advice.
Oh, I don't think we're asking you to change it, we're just wondering why it is.
Yeah.
Because it makes it cumbersome, that's all.
I think one of the issues is they made a decision to standardize on PDF because everybody has a free PDF reader. And if you use Excel, that means people have to go out and buy something from Microsoft.
And, right.
God forbid.
Judy, I just wanted to make some amends. When I said that, you know, the discrepancies that we were sort of sensing, this is a computer guy in me saying this could be a mistake. I'm not accusing
No, no.
anybody of a mistake. I'm just saying, one way to get to this situation would be, there's a problem.
Miss something.
Others is, you know, we just haven't looked at enough at the numbers, and we're gonna say, oh yeah, the payroll went up a lot, but that wasn't the whole thing, and all these other things didn't change much, and that will,
So
so I'm not,
there's $100
I'm not-
savings in legal.
right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
that's a big piece.
Right.
That's a
So-
big piece. No, thank you for that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was not
didn't really take it that way, I
accusing
was just a
anybody.
little like,
Yeah.
But, you know, when you do stuff over and over and over, sometimes you skip the same
Well-
thing every time.
That's right.
Well, we missed the double counting of the
Yes, the,
health, whatever it is.
And that $1,300 will help us a
there
lot.
we go. Oh,
And,
Oh, sorry, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, but there were people who voted at town meeting to amend the operating budget.
yeah.
Their intention was to add funds for the pond program and the lifeguards, but of course, you can amend the operating budget, but it's kind of up to the select board how the money that gets spent. So I could probably go back through town reports, but maybe you can remember. It would be interesting to know, maybe next week or before we wrap this up, how much money was voted to add, right, to these lines. Because I would anticipate that, like, a couple people are gonna
Somebody's
stand
gonna
up and
say.
do this, and this is gonna happen again, and maybe we could, like, address, it would be nice to at least, like, address that before the public hearing.
So what
and
we,
to wonder, should there be more money here? I mean, I don't know, the pond program, there's no way you could run a pond program for $4,500, like salary plus supplies, right?
well, yeah, they
It's-
have in the past for a lot less than that. It used to be like $2,000. But there are people interested in doing it. You could put more money in than that. And as we said, for the first time they raised the lifeguard wages by floor vote, you can put that $15,000 in there, but if
Mhm.
there's nobody to hire,
Sure,
then that $15,000 is gonna go either into the reserve or get spent on something else. But I understand what you're saying, and it's, from my point of view, when we have experience of a program that was a great program, that there's very little staff interest in, and by staff, I mean the people that would run the program, it's kind of disheartening for someone to say, well, let's just throw some money into that budget and let's see what happens when, we've worked hours to try and make a budget
Right.
that's responsible to the town, and then to have someone just kinda, and I don't know, it's hard for me to see that, because then, what do? Well, in the first year, we used the lifeguard money to pay for the monitors, because we
Right.
were having such a problem, but that wasn't the intent of it. And then
Right.
people complained about the monitors, and so then, it's,
I think people are more understanding of what's going on now in our economy about the inability to hire people for certain jobs. Because we've got restaurants that are closed and a number of things like that where they can't get any staff.
sure, but to push back on that, I would say that Hanover Parks and Recreation are running all their programs.
they don't have lifeguards at the Store's Pond, and they always had lifeguards there.
Right, but so
They have them at the pool.
taking the lifeguard situation out, just the pond program coordinator salary, I guess my question. I mean, in Hanover Parks and Recreation, I mean, I don't know who's running that, but I know that it's mostly, from what I can tell, high school kids that are functioning as, say, the counselors day to day, maybe some kids that are early college, they must have professional people running or administering, managing the whole system.
Yeah, they have paid staff that runs that program.
We
Right,
have
so it
full-time
would,
people in a lot
for
of
su-
those
yeah, well, I
programs.
mean, and Hanover's a totally different town.
Yeah, I
It's
was just
for-
gonna
There's a
say.
million reasons why we can't necessarily
Join.
compare ourselves to them, but I would maybe wonder, what are they paying the high school kids, right? Like, I assume it's hourly, and how does that, cause the POM program also is just 2 weeks and it's half a day, right? Or it was, I don't know, I never participated in it.
It was 4 weeks, and in Hanover, the Nugget Theater proceeds go
Mhm.
into their recreation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right,
So we need to have a theater and sell popcorn.
right.
I have a question. So Judy, or Dick, whoever, if the town, at town meeting votes to add, let's just say $5,000 to the pond program,
Right.
do you amend the budget to reflect that? Or do you just note it that it's extra money? In other words, the printed
No,
line
there
that.
would be, next year at this time, when you look at
Mhm.
voted at town meeting,
Yes,
that new number would be sitting in there.
even though you're not obligated to spend it that way.
That's right. We're-
Okay, all right, that's good, that's all I need to know, thank you.
You have,
You don't like my long
No, I don't.
explanations.
we add account lines.
No offense, I'm just hungry, that's all,
I could recommend some public relations, like put on the listserv the advertisement for it. A couple weeks later, say, we haven't had no response. So people are aware
Yeah.
that you're
I think
trying,
it's
but
been advertised on the listserv and further afield, but, we
haven't
can
seen it.
try again.
I haven't
um,
seen it.
Notice we didn't fill our vacant spot on the budget committee, we didn't get any volunteers.
Yeah, I know, but I'm putting it out there as more of a communique that,
Yeah.
hey, we're trying and
That's my
it's not working, we're
communications
not
person
getting
I want to
any.
hire.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, that's how I view it, like, I'm looking at this and I already know like what's gonna happen at town meeting, and I don't think it's fair, and I'm not advocating for one thing or another, other than to say, like, maybe, I mean, we could reach out, or maybe, I don't, did the rec commission not address this, they never,
They're
I
gonna be
don't know if
talking
I
about
missed
this
that
budget
meeting
again
or,
at their next meeting,
uh-huh,
but,
cause it's
I
kind of
think
on
it's-
them in a way to come.
well, I'm not sure how high up on their list it is. Either, when these programs started, they were started by parents, and the parents volunteered and did it for the community, and then it morphed a little bit, but it was still a lot of volunteer help, and, it's just, times have changed, and,
I mean, and maybe an argument can be made, why is this line still sitting here?
well, I would
Right?
make that argument, because but.
And then maybe that causes conflict but solves the problem in the long run. I don't know. It's frustrating to hear all the vitriolic sometimes discourse over the pond. I don't know,
Pond is a hot
you
button.
don't, I guess I spend time there, so I hear right, because I go with Eleanor and everybody's frustrated, there are no lifeguards, and everybody has a rationale that they've come up with in their head, and maybe they were at town meeting, or maybe they just read the listserv, and I end up kind of not wanting to get involved in it at all.
Yeah, I think.
And I
it's
encourage
higher
people to
problem.
come to meetings and,
Yeah.
and that's about it, but I guess it's just sort of, I heard it so much this summer.
Well,
But I'm not really on a side about it, I
No.
think everything at the pond is fine, currently.
It's just, it's not nice to have that undercurrent going on.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, I think if you are frustrated in general, and they
Yeah.
find something to focus it on.
Well, I'd rather have them focus on a $5,000 item than a $200,000 item.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so you don't anticipate any major warrant articles like roads, or is there anything big
We
looming?
really haven't gone there yet.
That-
Okay.
We'll get our first taste of that next week.
Maybe not.
Yeah, well, we didn't get our first taste until January last year.
Well, it may be the same this year, so don't be holding your breath.
Thank you for all your work on this.
Yeah.
You express that to the others.
All right,
I will see them tomorrow morning.
I haven't turned into a pumpkin yet. Does anybody have anything else they wanna do at today's meeting, or is it time to call it an adjournment?
I'll move we adjourn.
Thank you.
Motion seconded.
Says he's hungry.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
James. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, bye, Will.
All right,
see you.
8:33.
Okay. Thank you all, really, seriously.
You want me to draft up the first shot on that, so we'll send it to you, and then you
That'd be
can
great,
correct
yep,
it?
and I will add for subtract.
Put this over here, so we don't take over the
Hard
cards.
to take a little more notes than I normally do.
Yep, and the manager.